So it's great to welcome so many of you this afternoon, and thank you for taking the time out. I will, along with my colleague James, will be going through what this webinar is all about in relation to Autodesk Inventor and Sovelia. So before we really get into the nitty-gritty of this, I'd just like to do a quick introduction. So I myself, Ray Mahoney, I am the manufacturing manager for Symetri within Ireland. I'm joined very luckily today and fortunate to have James Lodge, our applications consultant in the UK division, who's responsible for all things around design and advanced manufacturing, workflows, tools, processes, and you name it around that particular area. Before we get into nitty-gritty and the detail about this webinar series, I think it's very important to bring it back. We started talking about in our first part of the webinar series about AutoCAD, we want to talk about Inventor, and in future webinar series, we will be talking about other applications as well. And the reason why I'm talking about Sovelia, and Sovelia is really a platform that we can give to you to enhance your workflows. So without further ado, I'm just going to go into kind of a quick format of what the webinar is going to entail. Firstly, I'm going to take the first two sections, which is talking about the business challenges and how Sovelia would fit the requirement around that. And secondly, then we're going to talk about our solution. Okay. And thirdly, then what James will do is he'll go through a live technical presentation of the product in action and going through some technical details and kind of giving kind of a good overview and insight to how we can help and enhance your workflow. Followed by that, if we have time, we have optional Q&A. So people that may have time would like to remain on, we have some Q&A time allocated aside, and we'd love to get your feedback and input into all this. Along with that, just a few housekeeping rules. We have some. It's not all me talking or James delivering a technical presentation. We do have some poll questions throughout the presentation, which my colleague Stephen will launch. So it'd be great to get some of your feedback on some of the topics that we'd like to discuss. Speaking of topics, so what are the topics? Okay, before we jump, the first thing we need to look at is from our perspective and us being in the industry and knowing, speaking to customers that are involved solely on, in Autodesk Inventor and 3D parametric modeling, we talk to them on a daily basis, either through support or through kind of workflow management or through kind of doing implementations or more of a consultant on projects. So we kind of get exposure to a lot of what customers are seeing out there. And we also get exposure to those challenges that they may be experiencing using those design solutions, but more importantly, how those design solutions interact with the overall business and how we can make that better for them. Because more and more we're seeing industry disrupt into areas where we require more. Industry needs more from us. They need more from design. They need more information and not just the geometry. And I think these are one of the challenges we're seeing here. One of the things is obviously time is money. So one of the key things to address is really about automating certain processes and reducing those repetitive tasks that we see, which cost money and time. The second thing is the manual data entry. We're finding a lot, as I just pointed out, that design is a big part of the business going forward, but what we do with design information is important. As I said, it's not just geometry, it's the data that coexists with that geometry that needs to be used for purchasing, for quality, for procurement, for you name it, across multiple departments. How that information is consumed is critical, and how it's shared from design is also very important. Again, another big part of that is BOM and parts list organization. How do we share our BOMs? How do we share our parts list effectively to the floor, to production, to procurement, for example? And how is that used in other systems as well? And a peeve of mine is the time-consuming drawing updates. There's some nice tools built into Sovelia Inventor that allows us to automate certain tasks around drawing updates. And that's going to be key to how we speed up the process and gain some time. This is all about gaining time and momentum around how we implement the solution as well, and further enhancing your return on investment of your design software as well. Before I get into nitty-gritty though, again, I keep saying that nitty-gritty, I would like to talk about, before I talk about trying to fix your challenges, I'm going to talk about what is Sovelia and what is Sovelia Inventor, which is part of the Sovelia portfolio. So I always think that Sovelia is an automation platform. Okay, it's a platform that enhances your capabilities with the product that you're using, such as AutoCAD, Autodesk Inventor, or another product. It sits on top of that product. And basically what it does, it kind of provides you tools and the capabilities to automate certain tasks. And when I mean automate repetitive tasks, I mean, for example, using iLogic more effectively, using components from standard libraries more effectively, okay? Or giving you a library of information in the background that you can automate the process, like base plates, handrailing, stairways, that kind of stuff. Things that are kind of, that are standard enough in design, but might change or might be configurable. There is a standard set component to those libraries. Another thing I'd like to discuss is about, automatic BOM creation and the information from a BOM, not just the name of the part, the quantity, but the other descriptive information that's required. One of the big things for me as well is the enhanced creation. Like if you look at Autodesk Inventor, trying to do pipe spool drawings is very difficult without a lot of manual approach to it. And in this case, we have inbuilt tools within Sovelia Inventor to enable us to do that more effectively and quickly as well. Auto numbering for weldments, for example, is another example. The other big thing is centralizing how we do from a standards and compliance perspective. That would mean like predefined templates, predefined styles set up for all users within a design office, for example, or an engineering office. That's key. And how that's administered and how that's controlled is also key to ensure that we got users using the latest and the greatest of our templates and styles and the most up to date. But other things that's really important as well, and again, we've only highlighted a few here, the metadata or property information being filled in automatically in a compliant way, and in a more automated way is key, but also the generation of third-party documentations, DWGs, DXFs, PDFs, information for production is equally important. And the one big thing, the one nugget that probably is overlooked quite a bit with Sovelia Inventor is the business system integration. How do we share the design information to something like ERP? And how do we take information from an ERP business system into our design office? And I'm hoping that, I'm kind of giving you a good overview of what Sovelia Inventor does and what it does and what it can do for your business. Okay, what I will do is I will move on from here. And I would like to very quickly, just moving Windows on my way as I was reviewing that, introduce my colleague, James. And James will happily kind of go through kind of a technical presentation to kind of give you a quick overview. So James, when you're ready, I'll hand it over to you.
In this next demonstration, we're going to take a look at Sovelia Inventor's property editor. The property editor has been designed to help you streamline the process needed to push business-critical metadata back into multiple components with ease in one hit. This takes away the manual requirement needed to access each individual component and add specific data into the iProperties information throughout your design workflow. Let's take a look at how the property editor can be used and how it can actually streamline this process for you. So let's take a look at a common workflow used by designers and engineers. Here we have Autodesk Inventor and an assembly. This assembly, which is a top-level assembly, consists of 3 sub-assemblies, 2 that derive each of the feet, and a third which derives the top of this structure. Let's jump into one of the sub-assemblies. So this sub-assembly has a number of parts. As we can see in the design browser, there are a number of standard part components as well as a sheet metal component as well. If we go into the bill of materials, we quickly notice that the materials themselves are still set to generic. There is also no information in the description fields, no stock number information, and a number of different standard properties that haven't been filled in for this design. Sure, we can start to fill these in manually, but as you can imagine, this could take quite some time. Also, ensuring that we've got the correct names needed for this specific process. Another way to do that would be to individually go into the iProperties and add in all the relevant information in iProperties here, whether that's for standard iProperty information metadata or for custom metadata as well. How does this affect things downstream? Well, when we take a look at the actual drawing itself, all the information in our parts list is based around the bill of materials. The bill of materials is based around each individual iProperty inputs that have been created for each individual component or subassembly. So this could take quite some time. We'd either have to go back into the assembly itself and manually fill in each of these specific instances. We'd have to go into the drawing, select the parts list, manually enter information inside the parts list and push it back into the bill of materials and clean it up. Surely there's got to be a better way. So today we're going to take a look at the property editor. The property editor allows each of the workflows that I've just described to be automated, making your workflow more efficient, much quicker, and adhere to specific standards that you might have with inside your working environment. For example, naming sequences. So let's start with the property editor. Okay, so once the property editor is open, I can select a specific component. As expected, when I select a component, it's highlighted. But when opened inside the property editor, the highlight is extremely easy to see. So you'll also notice that inside the property editor, we have a number of different property fields that we can start to fill in. Now I'm going to start by looking at this UPD code that we can see under the physical properties area. What this allows me to do is select specific information that can be used to automate the descriptions inside this specific part component, which again is going to have a direct effect on the information downstream when I come to the drawing. So for this instance, I'm just going to use this longest length. So this is going to measure the full length of this component. I'm not going to touch the description because that's going to be an automated process. But what I will do is select a specific material category. For this instance, I'm going to go for steel. And then I can actually then select this material itself. So let's again go for steel. Now what that does is it looks at your standard categories or custom categories that you've created inside Inventor, as well as the actual materials that you use on a daily basis. Okay. Notice this field here is title block. So I can directly input information using the property editor that will help populate drawing information related to this title block. So for this instance, I might add SQH, for example. I can also add information related to a specific project that I'm working on. So I'm going to add in Symetri. There are other options as well. I can tell it whether I want a specific category. So in instance, I've got laser cut, I've got machining, for example. There's loads of things inside here that I can use. I could add surface information, etc. But just for this instance, I'm going to hit apply and let's see what happens. So because of the selections that I made, I have now generated this HUP 30 by 30 by 10 with a length of 1280 description. If I close this off and then go back to the drawing, you can see that it's added in this title SQH, it's added in steel, and it's given me this description. If I need to make changes to that, I can come back. I can open up the property editor again and select the component. And if I do want to make a change, I can do that here. So I'm just going to put, for example, HUP profile, hit apply. That updates the information inside my parts list, as we can see, and then I can move back into the structure and I can carry on. Now, another thing that's quite nice about the property editor is what we can do is turn off the visibility of a component once we have applied specific properties. So if I highlight this component again, you'll notice down at the bottom of the property editor, I have some options for visibility off and visibility on. If I turn the visibility off, we can still see the outline of the component in the graphics window. But what that does is it allows us to turn off the visibility, move on to the next component, almost like you're picking them out of the assembly. Now that doesn't directly affect the assembly. It's not making any changes to the model states, for example. What it does is it creates this property editor view representation and allows us to quickly turn that off. We've also got access to these representations at the bottom of the screen inside the property editor panel itself. Notice that the property editor is selected and ticked. Okay, so I'm then going to move on to something else. I'm going to select another component from my graphics window this time and not the actual design browser itself. So I'm now looking at some structural steel that's being used to create this subassembly. Again, then I might want to add in some of the physical properties. So what I'm going to do is go for the UPD code. I'm going to look at profile types this time, and I'm going to select this IPE profile. So I'm going to select that. Again, I might want to then add a specific material category. So I'm going to go for steel. I'm going to change the material itself to steel. I might want to again add some further information. So for this, I'm going to call it iProfile, for example, and I want to assign it to the project that I'm working on. Okay, once that's done again, I'm going to hit apply. That applies that information. It generates my description, and I can turn off the visibility again. Having a quick look back at the drawing, what have we got? That's again added in this information. As you can see, iProfile, it's assigned the specific material, and it's given me the description. So let's do that just one more time. I think I've got another beam in here. Again, I'm going to do that again very quickly. Add the profile type, add the material category and the material. Add a little bit of information with regards to the title, assign my project, and again, hit apply and turn off the visibility. Now, up until now, what we've seen happen there is individual components that have had information pushed back with regards to metadata into the actual part file itself, stored, and again with associativity, that information's moved down into the actual drawing parts list. Taking a quick look at this model, all we can see now are what looks to be our plates. So here's where the real powerful thing comes with Property Editor. I can select all of these plates now. And what this is doing is it's looking through 23 different documents and processing them inside the Property Editor in the background. You'll notice that some of the property fields are classed as varies. So for example, the description is going to vary. Not all of these plates are the same size. The title block option might vary, for example, and stock numbers may vary as well. But what I can do here is I can select these as plates. Now there are a number of different options that we've got here straight out of the box. I'm just going to say plate extent, and what that's going to do is it's going to take the maximum size of each of these plates that you can see inside the graphics window. I am going to add the specific material category, and I'm also going to assign the material for each of these plates as well. What I'm going to do is add this to the project. I'm going to notice that the titles varies as well. I'm going to leave that as it is. I'm going to leave this stock number as well, because that's also set with a varies category, and I'm going to hit apply. So that's now processing each of these components. There are 23. You'll see that the timeline's moving up. So 21, 22, 23, and done. It's just now going through each of the read property options, taking a quick look at each of these components again, and just processing that data. Once that's done, I can then either turn them off, but when I jump back into the drawing itself, you'll notice that all of the descriptions have been added, but the titles haven't. So I might just need to jump back in. Going back in there again, it's just processing them. Again, it's got to think about the components that it's working with. Once that's in, I can say, okay, so the title varies. I do want to set this to plate. Each of them are plates. I'm going to hit apply again. It's going to process through each of them components once more. Once that's then done, we'll take another look at the actual drawing and we'll see the effect that that's made. Okay, that's now complete. And when I jump back, you can see that each of them components titles have been turned to plate. The description of them are all unique. Why? Because the plates are different sizes, but you can see there that we've got, the length, the width, the height, the thickness, etc. All of it's there. It's updated the actual materials themselves, and each of the mass have also been updated too. How much time has that just saved me? I'm not having to go through each individual component. I'm not having to copy and paste information inside the bill of materials. I've automated the descriptions there so that if any of these change, I can reprocess them. It updates the descriptions and it makes sure that the design information is relative to that component.